He taught himself and other prisoners a powerful technique. When fear came, and it came often, he would acknowledge it. Yes, I'm afraid. What exactly am I afraid of? Then he would break it down, examine it, question it. Is this fear protecting me or imprisoning me? Is this fear based on reality or imagination? Most of the time, he discovered his fears were monsters he had created in his own mind. And the moment he shined the light of awareness on them, they lost their power. Here's what Mandela taught us about facing fear, lessons that modern psychology now confirms is the most effective way to overcome any fear. First, name your fear. Don't run from it. Don't suppress it. Look at it directly and say, I'm afraid of. The moment you name something, you take away its mystical power over you. Fear thrives in the dark, in the unspoken. Bring it into the light. Second, question your fear. Ask yourself, what's the worst that could actually happen? Most of our fears are catastrophic fantasies that will never come true. Mandela asked himself, what's the worst that can happen if I stand up for what's right? They can imprison my body, but can they imprison my spirit? The answer was no. And that realization freed him even while he was in chains. Third, take small steps toward your fear. Mandela didn't try to overcome all his fears at once. He started small. First day, he spoke to a guard in Afrikaans. Small step. Next week, he learned more about their culture. Another small step. Each small victory over fear builds confidence for the next challenge. Fourth, use fear as information. Fear is often trying to tell you something. Sometimes it's warning you of real danger. But most times, it's pointing you toward growth. Mandela realized his fear of failure was actually showing him how much he cared about his mission. That fear became his motivation, not his limitation. Fifth, remember that everyone is afraid. Mandela watched his guards and realized they were terrified. Terrified of change. Terrified of equality. Terrified of losing power. Their fear made them cruel. His acceptance of his own fear made him compassionate. The difference wasn't who had fear. The difference was who let fear control them. After 27 years, Mandela walked out of that prison. And here's what shocked the world. He walked out without hatred, without revenge in his heart, without the bitterness that destroys most people who face far less suffering. How? Because he had spent 27 years not fighting his fears externally, but mastering them internally. He had turned his prison into a training ground, his fear into wisdom, his suffering into strength. 4 years after his release, he became president of South Africa. The same country that imprisoned him for nearly 3 decades elected him as their leader. But here's the most powerful part. He invited his former prison guard to his presidential inauguration. He could have had revenge. He could have let fear and hatred rule his actions. Instead, he chose forgiveness and unity. When reporters asked him, "How did you forgive them?" his answer revealed the deepest truth about fear. As I walked out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison. He had learned the ultimate lesson. The fears you carry with you are heavier than any chains. The grudges you hold are tighter than any cell. Real freedom comes when you stop being controlled by your fears and start using them as stepping stones to growth. Now, let's bring this to your life. Right now, there's something you're afraid of. Maybe it's starting that business. Maybe it's having that difficult conversation. Maybe it's leaving that comfortable but unfulfilling job. Maybe it's pursuing that dream everyone says is unrealistic. That fear you feel, it's normal. Mandela felt it. Every successful person you admire felt it. The difference between them and those who stay stuck isn't that they don't feel fear. It's that they've learned to dance with it rather than run from it. Here's your challenge. Today, identify one fear that's been holding you back. Just one. Write it down. Look at it. Now ask yourself Mandela's question. Will this fear still imprison me if I face it, or will facing it set me free? Then take one small action toward that fear. Not a giant leap, just one small step. If you fear public speaking, speak up in a meeting today. If you fear rejection, send that message you've been avoiding. If you fear failure, start that project you've been postponing. Because here's the truth Mandela learned in that cell. Every day you let fear make your decisions is a day you choose to stay imprisoned. Every day you face your fear, even in the smallest way, is a day you choose freedom. Mandela once said, "I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." Notice he said triumph over it, not elimination of it. You don't eliminate fear. You don't make it disappear. You triumph over it by choosing to act despite it. Your fears are showing you the path to your greatest growth. The things you're most afraid of are often the exact things you need to do to become who you're meant to be. Fear isn't the enemy. Avoidance is. Paralysis is. Letting fear make your choices is. Think about this. Mandela could have spent 27 years in that cell consumed by fear, hatred, and bitterness. No one would have blamed him. Instead, he chose to face his fears daily, to grow through them, to transform them into strength. And because of that choice, he didn't just free himself. He freed a nation. You have that same choice. Every single day. Will you let fear imprison you in a life smaller than you're meant to live? Or will you face it, learn from it, and let it forge you into someone stronger? The cage door is open. It's been open this whole time. The only thing keeping you inside is fear. And fear, as Mandela proved, only has the power you give it. So here's my final question to you. What would you do if you weren't afraid? Who would you become if fear no longer controlled your choices? Where would you go if you stopped letting fear build walls around your life? The answer to those questions is who you're meant to be. And the distance between where you are now and where you could be. That's just fear. And fear, my friend, is a terrible reason to live a small life. Mandela faced 27 years in a cell and came out free. You can face the fear that's been holding you back for 27 minutes and start your journey to freedom today. The choice is yours. The door is open. Now walk through it. Remember, it always seems impossible until it's done. Those are Mandela's words. And they're true for every fear you've ever faced and every dream you've ever had. Now go. Face your fear. Your future self is waiting on the other side. What if I told you that the thing you fear most is the exact thing standing between you and everything you want? What if your greatest fear isn't your enemy, but your teacher? Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you'll never look at fear the same way again. This might just change your life. Fear. It's the invisible prison that holds more people captive than any physical chains ever could. It whispers in your ear, "You're not good enough. You'll fail. People will laugh. Stay safe. Don't try." And millions of people listen to that voice their entire lives, never realizing they're living half a life controlled not by their dreams, but by their fears. But there was one man who refused to listen. A man who stared fear directly in the face and discovered something that changed not just his life, but the lives of millions who came after him. His name was Nelson Mandela, and his story about facing fear will shake you to your core. Imagine being locked in a tiny cell, 8 feet by 7 feet, for 27 years. No bed, just a thin mat on the floor. No freedom. No family. No future. Just you, 4 walls, and your mind. That was Mandela's reality on Robben Island prison. Every day, the same routine. Breaking rocks in the courtyard under the scorching sun. Every day, the same guards who hated him because of the color of his skin. Every day, the same question haunting him. Will I ever be free? Will I ever see my family again? Will I die in this cell? Most people would break. Most people would let fear consume them. Fear of dying in prison. Fear that their sacrifice meant nothing. Fear that their people would forget them. But Mandela did something different. Something that would teach the world the most powerful lesson about fear ever learned. In those early years of imprisonment, Mandela struggled. The anger burned inside him like fire. The fear gripped him at night when he couldn't sleep. The doubt whispered, "You made the wrong choice. You should have compromised. Now you'll rot here forever." He watched other prisoners break down mentally. He saw strong men reduced to shells of themselves, consumed by fear and hopelessness. And he realized something crucial. The physical prison wasn't the real threat. The prison they were building in their own minds was far more dangerous. One night, lying on his mat, unable to sleep, Mandela had a revelation. He realized his captors had taken his freedom, his time, his comfort. But there was one thing they could never take unless he gave it to them, his mind. His spirit, his choice of how to respond. That's when everything changed. That's when he stopped running from fear and started walking toward it. Mandela made a decision that seemed crazy to everyone around him. Instead of hating his guards, he decided to understand them. Instead of fearing his captors, he decided to learn from them. He started learning Afrikaans, the language of his oppressors. Other prisoners thought he had lost his mind. "Why are you learning their language?" they asked. His answer was simple but profound. You cannot defeat what you don't understand. And you cannot be free if you're controlled by hate and fear. He started studying his guard psychology, their fears, their motivations. He realized something powerful. His guards were also prisoners. Prisoners of their own fear and hatred. They feared him because he represented change. They feared what would happen if people like him were free. And here's the lesson that changed everything. Mandela discovered that fear loses its power the moment you stop running from it and start examining it. When you look fear directly in the eye, you realize it's not the monster you imagined. It's often just a shadow, made large by your avoidance. Mandela turned his cell into a classroom. He turned his prison into a university of the mind. Every day he disciplined himself. Physical exercise, mental exercise, emotional control. He was preparing himself not for revenge, but for leadership. He was transforming his fear into fuel. He learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is being terrified and doing it anyway. Every day in that cell, he was afraid. Afraid of wasting his life. Afraid of failing his people. Afraid of dying without seeing freedom. But every day, he chose to face that fear rather than let it paralyze him. Years passed. 10 years. 15 years. 20 years. Other prisoners asked him, "How do you stay strong? How do you not break?" His answer became legendary. "I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear."